Before the screen, there was the void, a space measured only by the slow tick of a mechanical clock. Then we filled that void, not with sound, but with an endless algorithmic stream of light, eradicating the very concept of unguided time. Historical quiet provided the biological foundation for the mind to hold, examine, and process a single idea without interruption. Untethered from infinite dopamine loops, our ancestors developed a specific cognitive reflex. Because they could sit in silence, they learned how to think. Look at the men in these trenches. Their survival often meant enduring extreme, grinding stillness and physical scarcity. This forced patience, this inescapable boredom, compelled the mind to turn inward. It actively forged what we now recognize as internal depth. Today, the mere sensation of waiting is practically outlawed. The modern ecosystem is entirely intolerant of even 3 seconds of unstimulated time. We condition the brain with microreactions. A swipe to dismiss, a tap to acknowledge, a sudden alert demanding a reflexive, involuntary twitch. We have constructed a society that actively punishes slow contemplation. By rewarding only the immediate reaction, the human thought process is fractured into isolated, momentary fragments. To control a population, you do not need to restrict their movement. You only need to fracture their attention. Eastern spiritual disciplines recognized this vulnerability early. They weaponized profound, unmoving silence as a direct defense mechanism against external control. In the Greco-Roman world, philosophers practiced solitary walking. The physical pace became a cognitive tool, used to map out reality without interruption. Ancient martial castes valued this as well. For the warrior class, the capacity for uninterrupted, unwavering focus was trained more rigorously than brute physical strength. These cultures understood attention as a critical defensive architecture. Modern society treats it as an expendable currency, ripe for external harvesting. A modern human processes more discrete pieces of information in a single day than our ancient ancestors encountered in an entire season. This diagram shows the biological cost. A stable neural pathway designed for continuous thought is violently severed by algorithmic interruption. Our hardware was never evolved for this. We routinely confused a raw mechanical intake of data with the slow, deliberate synthesis required to generate actual wisdom. When the mind vibrates with constant new inputs, it feels productive, but high-frequency neurological stimulation is not intelligence. Constant task switching prevents the brain from entering a state of deep focus, where complex associations are formed. By forfeiting the ability to build these logical structures, we lose the capacity to think from first principles. We are now observing Generation Alpha growing up entirely symbiotic with artificial intelligence, a demographic that has never known a baseline of true silence. For the impending Generation Beta, the trajectory is steeper. The solitary friction of cognitive struggle may be eradicated entirely from their developmental timeline. We are watching the internal logic loops of the brain being bypassed entirely, routed instead into external corporate servers that perform the labor of reasoning for us. It starts by offloading basic memory and calculation. Inevitably, the dependency bleeds deeper, offloading ethical reasoning and philosophical judgment. By delegating the labor of thought to machines, we are dismantling the cognitive muscles that once defined the human experience. Look closely at the architecture of mass distraction and ask yourself who actually benefits from a population incapable of sustained focus. The stark irony is that the designers of the modern attention economy do not consume their own product. They strictly insulate their own lives from the algorithms they deploy. These powerful figures hoard silence. They protect it more fiercely than their wealth. Silence represents the structural space required to build one's own mental architecture. Maintaining cognitive autonomy in a noise-driven world is no longer a baseline human right. It has been elevated into the ultimate luxury good. We are approaching a threshold where the sheer capacity to sit quietly and think deeply will become a deliberate act of rebellion. Ancient cultures etched their knowledge into stone, ensuring their thoughts outlasted their empires. we trade our permanence for the fragile convenience of the feed. No external force will be required to strip away our cognitive independence. The majority of humanity will willingly surrender it, just to avoid the friction of thinking. The future will not belong to the loudest minds. It will belong to the few who can still tolerate the sound of their own thoughts. Subscribe to Codex Aurum for more decoded mental architectures hidden beneath modern reality.